sector in the Gulf countries that others could learn from as much as we have learned from them. So we want to complement and integrate not only the regional but also the international railway industry. With that comes, we need to build the institutional capacity. Definitely this is where you come most critical in really being instrumental in advising and taking part of how to build the institutional capacity, and I discussed all of these things. But one of the most important things that we will come to is that, training academy, regional training academy, one single regional training academy, and I will talk about that a little bit. We are looking on the job training now. We're discussing with so many countries of, sending staff. They would spend 6 months, 12, 18 months working in these railway companies, consultants, contractors on the ground to learn it by hands and come back and really be the advocates for the sustainable development of the railway. Our biggest challenge now is the institutional issue, and we are tackling it now. We hope we have a meeting by end of September with ministers of transport, then 4th of October with the ministers of finance in Bahrain, and we hope that we will succeed to advance the agenda of forming the GCC Railway Authority. Have no question in mind that all member states, all relevant ministers are extremely supportive of forming the GCC Railway Authority. We had a mandate by the summit to form it. However, it was a timing issue. When should we form it? Now the project is well under implementation. Now the project is facing a lot of challenges, and it requires this fundamental one body to basically organize, coordinate, and many of my colleagues might not like to hear that, but also have some teeth, some authority to ensure that the GCC Railway will be implemented as one regional integrated project, And we needed to develop a sound action plan, and many of us know our action plans and schedule are floating. We will finish in 2018, but if it finishes in 2019, 2020, so what, It's better late than never, But we want to adhere to some really professionalism, some, dedication to what we commit to. And why? Simply because, honestly, the heads of the states are in full support of this project. They have an open, a check for you, not in the sense of financial, but say, tell us what you need, and we will facilitate. We will make sure that you get the resources, because this is important development for them as well. We also need to develop the tools and instruments, how to do that. And all of what we have discussed, I have discussed, it's part of it, the capacity building, the training, how to basically work with international, how to adapt all of these, standards, and that meets your condition. This is all of it, And we need to capitalize on international organization experiences. I say that because they are in the region. They've been for 40 years. And I always say, they are only as good as the counterpart. People don't understand the project. They don't understand our needs. They come and go. It is us and you in this room to basically steer them and tell them, what are really our requirements and how to meet it, because they have a lot of information. But we need to filter that information to see what best fit us and how we can benefit them. Otherwise, I've seen it many, many times, we get nothing out of it, Reports and studies that you look at it, how much has been delivered, what are the results on the ground. Honestly, it's marginal. So we need to collectively look how to maximize the benefit from these organizations. They do have a lot of information. And I would say effective partnership, and I mean it, effective partnership. That comes with participation from the private sector at all levels. And now we're talking, seriously about this issue. We want them to invest in the infrastructure. We want them to invest in the operation. We want them to be an effective player working with the governments and tell us, the best way, the best formula that we can work together to ensure that, we can ensure quality, we get the best expertise, know-how, and experiences, and also to have successful projects. We don't stop here, actually. What we are looking for, regional railway integrated with the national GCC railways and beyond. We have carried out a study in maybe 2010 completed to link the GCC railway where it ends from Muscat all the way down to border of Yemen. And you will be surprised, I mean, they have endorsed the principle because that's how they started the study, but it's a matter of timing. They said, we will wait until we see how the GCC railway is developing, then we will come to this link. And also, we would like to see how the railway sector in Yemen is developing, and then we will come to that. Things have developed in the right direction, and you will see why. Also, the GCC railway will be linked with Kingdom of Bahrain. At the time of our work, there were two options to link it through Saudi Arabia via a proposed new causeway in the vicinity of existing causeway, and or by a causeway between Qatar and between Bahrain. At the time, the Qatar-Bahrain causeway was more advanced, indeed expected to start construction anytime. This is maybe 2 years ago or so, 3. So the link between Bahrain and Saudi Arabia put on hold. However, I can assure you there is a strong commitment now to look into this link, and as we speak, we have commenced a study to, I don't want to call it a feasibility only, it's a feasibility engineering to link the two kingdoms via proposed causeway with the GCC railway. Tenders have been received, evaluation is almost completed, and our goal is basically to bring this issue again to the ministers' meeting to secure their approval for the study. I don't expect any issues, any difficulties. And then hopefully sign the contract to commence the study by next month, with our objective to really conclude it by mid of 2014, where we have to go back again to the ministers and heads of the states based on the study results, and hopefully we are looking positively to endorse it. This will be a significant project, a causeway, a railway link that would link all the member states. This is actually a proposed alignment, not in engineering sense, but it will be basically on the same vicinity of the existing causeway. Indeed, the existing King Fahd, I don't know how many of you are very familiar with it. The middle islands, it's about 650,000 square meter, will be empty, and it will be given for private sector for investment, recreation, maybe resort, whatever is that. It will be two parts, one for the Saudi part, one for the Bahraini. Already started construction inland for the immigration and custom facilities in the Saudi part. This was about maybe almost a year ago now, and they have already started few months back the inland construction for immigration and customs in the Bahraini side. So you do that, you clear it up, and it will be much easier, much more facilitated at the beginning of the causeway, and the rest of it, you don't have to stop anywhere. This hopefully will increase the capacity. I spoke about the link to Yemen and the study, and I'm not going to speak for my colleagues here in Oman, but this is basically, it became part of the national or the Omani National Railway Network. They took it from where it is in Muscat, and we've been working with them. Then it became a highest priority to link it to Ad-Duqm. It's about 530 kilometers. I'm sorry, I'm sure many of you you're very familiar with the map. And then they decided also to go through what they call an area. It's called Thamrit, that goes down to Salalah. And then the last link between Thamrit and border of Yemen, it's about maybe 80 kilometers. That will be left until further development. So now you're talking about 2,200 GCC railway to Muscat, and you talk about Omani national network of about maybe 2,000 kilometers, starting from about 450 to 2,000 kilometers. So it shows you how significant the railway development in the region, and how committed, the decision makers to actually make it happen. In fact, the Saudi railway network, they have a master plan they just endorsed recently, a few months back, and this is how it's going to look in the future. They're really looking now, as we speak, into different networks in the western part of it that goes from Jeddah area all the way down to the Yemeni border. And in fact, there are discussion on linking Sana'a and the Yemen with this railway network. There are segments of the railway network developed in the north, east, west. You are very familiar with the North-South Railway project that should be nearing completion for passenger in maybe year and a half. The freight has been operational for about year and a half. In fact, they have already tendered for the land bridge that will go from Riyadh to Jeddah, and this is about 1,000 kilometers. They were going to do it BOT concession. However, it didn't succeed for several reasons, and now they're going the conventional way of design, construction, and concession for operation. I had the pleasure to visit the Haramain high-speed rail. It's about 450 kilometers, and I advise all of you, if you have the opportunity, this is the most learning experience in the region. Most learning, interesting experience in the region. 450 kilometers. There are so many interesting issues to learn. If you have the opportunity, you have Saudi Railway Company. They are very open and they are welcoming for people to go and visit it. You can see things on the ground. It's supposed to finish, I think, in about maybe 2 to 3 years. Phase 1 is nearing completion, where they have the way they've done it. Phase 1 is basically civil work, and phase 2 is the superstructure that actually awarded to a consortium from 12 Spanish companies and 2 Saudi, Al-Shu'la. And it started about a year ago, and we hopefully see it in operation in the coming, a few years. We have also been in discussion, I don't know how many of you are familiar, with the Arab League. They have mandated the Kuwaiti Fund for Economic and Social Development to do a Mashriq and Maghrib railway network to identify, the existing networks, the gaps, and the priorities of the coming railway. The study has been concluded, and I'm sure it's in the last, stages of approvals. GCC Railway and the region railway network will form a fundamental part of the Mashriq network, this one, as you see, and the Maghrib network for this one. I think, the GCC, to say the least, is one of the most exciting, challenging. We have all these issues now that we have to tackle: the border crossing, the customs, immigration, what kind of risks of delays, cost overrun, time overrun. We're looking at nationalizing railway industry and so forth. With that, in fact, we have already secured the mandate about 2 years ago. I think maybe we are a little bit late. We're doing bits and pieces of that, but basically to nationalize the railway industry. And I will invite all of you to join us in a governmental workshop that will take place here in Oman, expected to be in March. Most likely it's going to be April or so in 2014, where we would like to bring the governments and the private sector and to discuss how basically we can work together to build an industry around the exhausting, 10,000 kilometer, an investment of 200 billion. We already start discussion with Rotam, with Turkish, with Spanish, and even United States and Europeans, if they are interested at government levels, to come and set factories and supporting industries to the GCC railway. Another one I would like to invite you to is a major conference we hold every 2 years. We held one in 2011 in Qatar, and that will discuss basically the overall transport, railway, and logistics. That is at the most senior level, where ministers of finance, transport, and even sometimes the prime minister and the secretary general would come and inaugurate and have a very effective discussion. In fact, the resolutions of these conferences, they are already mandated, and we have a committee that follow up on the implementation of these resolutions. So we take action, and we would like to see results on the ground. With that, I thank you all, and I'm sorry I took much of your time. But I open it if any questions or any concern.
Dr. Assad, thank you so much. Firstly, I think it's breathtaking to see how fast and what amazing progress you've made. And I think you're being very modest. Looking from a European perspective, you've achieved extraordinary things. And I'm sure that there were further steps on the way, of course. But you should be very proud of how far you've got already.
Thank you so much. Actually, I'm very proud of all the member states, all our colleagues, and all the people who really effectively participated. It's an effort, endless effort that, many of us have worked endlessly, really, and to achieve and to hopefully continue, because most important now is to keep this momentum. You can see a lot of people get tired, 3-4 years, and it's going to take another 3-4 years. The other challenge is how to keep this momentum going, how to keep the same staff on board. We have many staff, they change and they go with their expertise, and we don't have a mechanism really to basically exchange this information.
Okay. As you'll probably have noticed, Dr. Assar has taken the subject in the round, which means that Mr. Al-Olayan will join us for the panel session afterwards, since the whole issue of the GCC railway system has been dealt with so well by Dr. Assar. But we do have a couple of possibilities of raising questions now, if that's okay.
Anytime.
If people have any specific questions they want to raise.
My name is Anita Chalam. I work for Etihad Rail. Dr. Ramiz, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. I'm sure I speak for all of my colleagues here when I say it was both informative and enlightening. Working in the commercial unit at Etihad Rail, I'm of course aware of all of the hard work that the GCC member states have done with regard to defining a lot of interoperability standards at the various meetings. My colleagues John and Mark, of course, share your sentiments that a lot of really difficult challenges have been overcome in setting some of the early stage guidelines, such as the detailed engineering guidelines that you mentioned earlier. My question comes more on the commercial front rather than the operational front. As we move to 2018 and we begin to see GCC-wide operations, where do you expect additional challenges to be seen and dealt with regard to commercial items such as customer relationship management and or financial implications as we deal with movements going from one country to another?
First of all, Etihad is an integral part of what we're doing. They are effective, they've been forthcoming, and we very much appreciate their efforts, actually. For the commercial side, it was agreed in principle that it will be an open competition, and the market will set basically the prices. If there are additional prices, it will come within that formula. But we are not interested, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we're not really interested to set up, the tariffs for the freight, at least, and, basically have even to the minimum managed, what they call competition. Of course, I'm sorry, I don't want to shy away from the question, but basically the market will set it, But for passengers, and that's, has been a fundamental discussion to look at the GCC railway. Is it a commercial part? Yes, fundamentally is for freight, but, when it's mandated, and I understand why the heads of the states and anywhere in the world, we don't want to repeat the experience of United States of truly monopolizing, the railway network for freight, But also the passenger side is very important, and that will look into some kind of government support, or it depends how they will concession the network on the issue of vertically and horizontally separated railway networks. There might be some cross subsidies. But as we are moving, as you ask this question, in fact, these are the most critical issues that we have circulated, the draft final guidelines that tackle the exact issues that you have mentioned. Since you are an Etihad Rail, I'm sure you have access to it. We welcome any comments also from you and others it would be very helpful to us. I hope I did answer your question.
Thank you, Dr. Amis.
Can I just pick up on the finance side there, because that's an area which I'm particularly interested in. Firstly, I'd like to make one comment, which is that I think the idea of having an authority in place well before the project goes into operation is absolutely essential. And I've seen that in another circumstance where you have to have a preparatory phase, and you need an authority to be able to see that through when you're implementing an international treaty. So I would very much support your approach on that. But just going to the question of financing, there are many discussions to be had on BOTs and PPPs and so on, and the Saudi experience is quite interesting as to how the BOT project was launched and in fact was pulled back. But just in terms of particularly of rolling stock finance, my baby, as you probably know, is the Luxembourg Rail Protocol. The EU will be hopefully agreeing to ratify this within the next 2 weeks, and that will be a huge step forward in Europe, and then member states will start ratifying. Are there any plans here for the GCC also to adopt the protocol? Because surely it will make financing of the rolling stock side an awful lot easier.
In fact, for the financing of the rolling stock, there are two options that we consider. One, either the government procure it and give it to the private sector, and the other one is ask the private sector to buy the rolling stock, not only for finance, but also for, it's like, you are buying your equipment to operate in this network. And that remains, so far the model is that the government is procuring the rolling stock, as far as I know. However, it depends on how they will concession it. Could be in Qatar, could be different. In Kuwait, they're looking maybe at a different model. But, for a protocol to procure the rolling stock and the leading items, yes, we have discussed it. And in principle, they agreed to do what we call common procurement for the leading, stuff like even sleepers, fasteners, rolling stock. However, again, you're dealing with 6 member states, 7 member states, for all the reasons that you might think of, and many of us understand, they want to do it separately. So they said, let us agree on the minimum general specifications for the rolling stock that we are doing now to ensure, at least from safety, interoperability, and the fleet, basically mechanism is common, and let the member states procure it, because they are already also procuring the infrastructure, and they will be the ones to concession for operation and maintenance. So they're not very interested in having common procurement for the rolling stock. I wish they would, but again, you're talking about efficiencies and saving money, but I also understand your take onto that issue, that they want to have the flexibility and the space to do it themselves. And there are merits to that.
I think I have to brief you further about the Luxembourg Protocol, because the whole point is it will make it easier for individual countries and operators to buy rolling stock, to actually finance it, rather than the common procurement. And particularly where you've got rolling stock moving across borders, what the protocol, the Luxembourg Protocol will do, will secure the financial position of creditors. So maybe that's another discussion we need to have.
It will be actually interesting, but when I was talking about adaptability to national local condition, it truly, and it will be good learning experience, and many of them are aware of it, but they say, we don't have difficulty with the funding, and they tend to have to like naturally to have some control over what they're doing. So they are willing to have, sacrifice even the ease of procuring, the movement of the rolling stock, and all the things you mentioned in light or in lieu of basically paying more money. That's a point of view, and I personally very much respect it for whatever reason.
Of course. Are there any other questions?
Thank you. Ramesh, are there any moves for making some uniform operational regulations, or are you looking at that? Because I think this is one of the things which is going to be an issue as different networks get ready, especially like you've seen in Saudi Arabia, etc. So there's always good to have operational regulations which are sort of uniform in the region.
Certainly. In fact, the common guidelines I refer to has actually 4 chapters in it, 4 volumes. The first one, which we endorse, is the detail engineering design phase. Second one, we discuss about the construction and construction management, and this is when we talk about buying rolling stock, leading item, common procurement, and so forth. The third and fourth, the third discuss exactly these issues, operational issues, and operational plan, and what needs to be done, in to some good level of details, as specifying to all member states what needs to be done because we want to foresee what's coming in the future. And the last one is the institutional, the big issue, which fundamentally comes into the basically safety economic regulations. And if I get anything out of that document endorsed, I would hope the GCC Railway Authority. That's basically the institutional one. So yes, we've taken that into consideration. And indeed, it will be nice for member states, because this is in a way a confidential document to them, and we don't have the luxury as the Secretary General to release, but it would be worthwhile for the people who are working in the railway, consultants, contractors, to have access to it and to review it, to look at it from practically, if some things, is it doable or not. And I'm not going to speak, there is one case as we talk now that basically did not meet the minimum requirement in one design parameter, which is very important, and we're taking it very seriously. That will be discussed in the next meeting, steering committee meeting. But yeah, these things happen, and we try to forecast it and prepare ourselves ahead of time.
Okay, thank you. I think we should start moving on. Just one last comment, if I may. To emphasize one of the points you were making before, I was chairing a conference in Dar es Salaam 3 weeks ago, and what is very interesting to hear there is that they're waiting for the rail network to come in from the north. When Ethiopia starts building its rail network, which is a very extensive project on its own, and as the railway system comes in, connecting up with the north of Africa into the GCC states, that's going to change the way that countries such as Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania deal with their rail systems in a very fundamental way, because of the way that they adopt the standard gauge. So,
Yes.
so your work here is actually going to have an amazing knock-on effect going down the east coast of Africa, even though most people in this room probably don't even realize that. And so you're really playing a part in railway history, if I can put it like that.
In fact, I'm very proud to say that, the GCC countries, when they start this railway, it was the first regional railway, and they looked at it as a really regional railway. And after that, even the World Bank start looking at corridors development. Not anymore in one single railway project. They're looking at corridors. One of them is this, for North Africa and, the African countries. And in fact, even United States now, they're looking at corridor developments, where they have some regions and exactly the same concept of linking. We had meetings with the Secretary of State in Washington, D.C., and the Congress and so forth, when the new bill passed to, add into the existing railway the passenger transport. And it's facing tremendous challenge. And if you ask me today, I don't think it would see the light, because they started with a huge network. Now they're looking at a corridor development where it is more effective. But again, you get hit with the very strong lobby, basically, from the freight, transport in the United States, and even the legislation. But thank you again so much for the time, and
thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Amiz will join us again for the panel session afterwards. Our next speaker is Mohammed Al-Sharfi. Hopefully he's with us somewhere. Ready to give his presentation. Thank you.
My name is Salman Aremi. Most of the business people or private sector in the GCC, they are looking forward to have some industry going along with these railways. My question, will be there a privilege for the local factory or product being manufactured in GCC country to use in this product, in this project? That's one question. Number two, we are as a business people, we had faced a lot of problem, especially with the European consultant. Most of the European consultant are coming here, even promote their local product in Europe, in our countries, and they're avoiding even the local product which made in Oman or Saudi Arabia, etc. Is there will be also any, in Oman, alhamdulillah, government start also to watch after we are crying, and we talk to the Chamber of Commerce, we meet the ministers, and then it has been sorted out, sort of. But still, we have struggling with the European consultant, even still here in Oman. There will be any rule for this matter?
In fact, if I may address this question, maybe 3 points. The first one, the GCC railway and the national railway network will form totally the backbone of the coming railway development. I'm saying that there are links already contracted, for example, in Saudi Arabia, in Jubail Industrial City, and King Abdullah, what they call economic cities, to extend the railway, even to Aramco. So with that, you will start seeing, spiral of railway networks to capitalize on moving goods and even, commodities from these industrial areas. The second thing, you ask about, basically what I was referring to, nationalizing the railway industry, meaning can we actually, we have, let's say, you talk about the common procurement. If we were able to buy the rolling stock, the leading items, all together as GCC member states, talking about 500-600 rolling stock pieces, we will be able to entice the international manufacturers to come to the region and manufacture it here. Because you're talking about, first, economies of scale. If they can, manufacture it there and bring it, it will be cheaper for them, yes. Why not? They will not do it locally because they have to, at the end of the day, to make profit. If they cannot maintain the quality of manufacturing within the GCC countries, then they would shy away. Yeah. So with that comes building the capacity of the national, GCC countries to be able to basically entice them. You have better economies of scale, and you can have compelling, argument. Yes, you can come in here. And we tried to do that with the rolling stock. We did talk to companies, and they were very interested. They said, if you do it as one procurement, yes, we can see, we have a role, we can come and set up factories and so forth. The third issue of, having difficulty or challenge, if I may say, it doesn't matter with European or any other who are manufacturing. I always say it really, they are only as good as the counterpart. So when you have a competent counterpart sitting around the table and being able to discuss effectively with them, why should they set up a factory, let's say, in the GCC countries? What is the benefit to them? Do they have the resources available, the skills required for that? Do they have the enabling environment? Even sometimes policies of countries prohibit, labor to come and basically manufacture nationally. With all that said, again, we invite you to this workshop that will take place in Oman. This is exactly what it will be discussing, how to best benefit from these international bodies to come and set factories and to support our industry and to build the capacity and exchange what they call technology transfer. And hopefully within the coming 10, 15 years, you can do it. You can do it.
Sorry, people cannot hear you, I'm afraid, without the microphone.
We are here in Oman. We are looking for sort this project. I can give opportunity to employ Omani people to work in search of these factories. This one, number one. Number two, also, I would like to develop the Oman country, and to be also as a setup of these countries, not just only, I'm only consumer over here. First of all, I have more people from Oman can work here. Also, added value for Oman. Hard currency also will not get out of Oman further. This one, that's how I look at it. I'm not looking Oman economy or Oman business people just only consume for other countries over here. That's our idea. I also, I would like to reduce my unemployment over here in Oman. When I have Oman willing to work in any place, even, and it doesn't matter. This is how I look at it. And I don't look for as I consume the country.
Just for the sake of time of our colleagues, I will just conclude with maybe 3 things. First of all, welcome to attend. It's actually Oman is champion this workshop because they are very much interested in that. Second, some countries are already doing it, but bits and pieces and piecemealing here and there. Saudi Arabia, they do have a training academy already established to build the capacity. They have already put in the contracts that they have to build factories in there and leave it there, and they have to train, official train. What we need, last thing, is to have this structure program formalized and endorsed by the heads of the states, by the senior officials who would really support you and take you from where you are today into the coming 10, 15 years where, as you said, you're not consumer, you can do it. You can build it, you can train, you can create jobs, and it will come to these countries to stay here, done by nationals, as well as also a link with the needed expertise. We will never say we can be totally independent. The experience and the know-how is international. Thank you so much. Again, you're welcome to the workshop. I'm sure it will be very beneficial to all.
Thank you. And I think from my side, I can only say the same, that technology transfer, also in my area, like in finance, is absolutely essential to make this project work sustainably in the coming years, not just to be an importer of expertise and not to develop that expertise locally as well. We'd like to move on now. Our next speaker is Mohammed Al-Shrafi, who's the Rail and Transit Senior Project Manager at Qatar Railways. He's going to talk about the Qatar Railway Company as a case study. Our speaker has more than 25 years' experience in all phases of civil and structural engineering projects, concentrating in LRT, commuter rail, transit and freight railroad facilities and special track work, monorail and rolling stock procurement, and has considerable expertise also in design and construction. So without further ado, dear speaker.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I start my presentation with overall about Qatar Rail. Then after that, I will concentrate on the sale and what we're doing at this point and the phase that we have been working on the infrastructure. Then after that, we will move into just specific in the rolling stock and what we are doing in the procurement. As you know, look at Qatar to the world. And the sale city is the, from the point perspective. I hope this is working. Okay, why Qatar needed the railway? We have to transform Qatar into world-class economy by 2030, capable of sustaining its own development and providing for a high standard of living for all its people for generations to come. To seek a comprehensive urban development plan for Qatar Rail that adopt sustainable policy with regard to urban expansions and population distributions. To establish a high quality and integrated public transport network that results in a modal shift from private motor vehicle to a public transport across the country, whilst recognizing the right and desire of Qatar to transport choice. The rapid rise of the disposable income have led to exponential growth in car ownership, and with its significant increase in road accident and traffic congestions of the peak time. Therefore, having a railway system will decrease the accident rates and traffic congestions on pollutions. Establish an attractive, safe, and highly sophisticated rail system within Qatar and connect to a state of Qatar, as Dr. Ramiz indicated, to the GCC country, plus the Bahrain causeway. The railway network will comprise 4 metros, 4 lines, and high-speed rail connecting the Bahrain to Qatar, and the passenger line, freight line to connect the GCC country. One of the key drivers for the provision of railway services for the FIFA 222. As you know, everybody know that Qatar will get the 222 FIFA and World Cup, and that's what we are planning for the first stage to work in. The railway system needed for the World Cup will be operational by 2020. That's what for the 222. The complete railway system will be in the place of the 2026 and 2030. Just to give you an idea of what We have the Metro Red Line, Coast Line, Gold Historic Line, a Green the Green Line, which goes to Education City, and a Blue Line, City Line. And the long distance goes to Al Khur and cities, and goes to passenger train services, freight railway to Saudi Arabia, and also connection to the GCC country. General infrastructure, we go for passenger stations, freight terminals, maintenance facility, and central control room. Just to give you the network, what we have, the total length is 350 kilometers. We have about 119 kilometers underground and 73 kilometers elevated, and at grade about 166 kilometers. The maximum speed designed for that one in here, 80 kilometers under